It's good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy. Back to Hometown Commander, back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I take my first pass at the commander in front of us on a budget on my quest to brew the magic world. You know the motto, baby. It's ABB, always be brewing, and that's what we're back to do today. The deck list is going to be down in the description for you below. So, as I'd really appreciate if you could interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe, do all that YouTube stuff. I'd appreciate it. But today, I was kind of wondering when we'd get back around to this commander, and it took a bonus sheet in Final Fantasy as we got Yuriko, the Tiger's Shadow, as Yuffie. I think a lot of people had mixed emotions seeing the art on this card when we first got shown, but I think it was really good because Yuriko is a very popular commander. It's a very interesting commander, and it was cool to see Yuffie get represented on a card that I think is very powerful. Yuriko is a 3 mana 1/3 human ninja with Commander Ninjutsu. So as long as a creature is attacking that isn't blocked, you can pay a blue and a black and bring Yuriko from the command zone onto the battlefield tapped and attacking and bring that creature back to your hand. And it says whenever a ninja you control hits a player in combat, you can reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. Each opponent loses life equal to that card's mana value. Yuriko is very well known for two things. One, cheating the commander attacks by being able to ninjutsu herself back in for just 2 mana. And the second is trying to maximize each of our ninjas hitting our opponents and trying to deal some big damage. So we're going to talk about creatures that hopefully can get in unblocked so that we can ninjutsu in. We'll talk about some great ninjas that have abilities when they hit our opponents. And then we'll talk some huge spells that we can damage our opponents with. I want to say a quick thank you to the channel member. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you're interested in seeing our videos just a teeny bit early, check it out down below. Well, all right. Evasion can come in a lot of different packages. I think there's really two ways for me to look at it. Flying, which may seem like not very much to some people, but the truth is, if your opponent has no flyers, it's just as good, and unblockability. So we have a couple of cheap flyers: Baleful Strix, Fairy Seer. My thought on these cheap flyers is trying to find flyers that do something when they come in. Um, that way, they're still valuable for us. Baleful Strix draws a card. Fairy Seer lets us scry two, which again could be useful for the purposes of setting up Yuriko's lines. Same thing, so we see Changeling Outcast can't be blocked. Things like Mistcloak Herald can't be blocked. Moth Touch Changeling lets us tap an untapped creature to give it flying. Ornithopter is just an O2 with flying. The key thing about something like Ornithopter is remember that Ornithopter doesn't have to deal damage, it just has to be unblocked, right, for one of our ninjas to ninjutsu in. Slither Blade can't be blocked, Spectral Sailor with flying, and then Tetsuko Umezawa adds a nice piece on there, stopping our creatures with power or toughness 1 being blocked, which is going to help with some of our ninjas, making sure they get through unblocked as well. But it basically is just going to make sure that all these cheap evasive creatures can get in unblocked so we can ninjutsu in on top of them. Tormented Soul, Tyrant Storestalker, again, 1 mana unblockables. And then Smoke Shroud says that the equipped creature gets pulse and pulse and that's flying. And whenever a ninja comes into our control, we can return to the battlefield, attach that creature. Really nice because then it can give things like Yuriko or some of our other ninjas flying and allow them to hopefully continue to attack the next turn and still damage our opponents. Well, okay. Who are our ninjas? Who are we trying to ninjutsu in? Well, truthfully, there's a lot of different options. There's some popular ones. There's some, less known ones. But as far as your popular ninjas go, Fallen Shinobi, when it hits an opponent, that player exiles the top two until the end of our turn. We can play those cards without paying their mana cost. That's absolutely huge. Mainly because you don't know what you're going to hit. Very often in Magic we see these abilities that are like, oh, you hit and then you can pay them. You can play them this turn where the mana, is any color. But what's key about Shinobi is that you just hit them and play them for free, which is huge because then you can still play them at the right time. Also, notably, it says until end of turn, so if you hit an instant, you can still use that instant at the right time. Higura, when it hits a player, we can search for a ninja and put it into our hand. Again, love the idea of this ability because then it can put the key ninjas we want in our hand at the right time. Higura can also pay to make a ninja unblockable. Pretty nice, right? To make sure that our ninjas can get in. Ink Eyes, when it hits a player, lets us bring a creature from that player's graveyard back onto the battlefield under our control. Pretty cool to start kicking our opponent's things back. Mistblade Shinobi says we can return a creature that player controls to its owner's hand when we hit somebody. Pretty key. Start bouncing tokens or other things back to their hand. Miss Syndicate Naga makes a copy of itself whenever it hits an opponent in combat. Really nice to then have more ninjas that can be attacking our opponents, right, and hitting them and triggering Yuriko's. Remember, Yuriko goes off every time one of our ninjas hits. Sakashima student can enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield except it's a ninja in addition to its other type. So at minimum, it comes in as a copy of one of our things. At maximum, maybe it comes in as a copy of one of our opponent's key things, and we kind of get our own copy of it. Silent Blade Oni lets us look at the player's hand we hit and play a spell from among them without paying their mana cost. Silver for Master gives our ninjutsu abilities a little bit of a reduction and some buffs. And then Thousand Face Shadow, if it enters from our hand and it's attacking, we create a token that's a copy of another attacking creature, and the token's end if you're the battlefield tapped and attacking. So it's an interesting way to come in and make another copy of one of our things. The ninjutsu cost is kind of high, but I mean, it can come in and really generate some value for us. Well, okay. What are the big spells we're looking to see? And I think this is where you're going to notice a big difference between a lot of the Yuriko decks you're going to see out there. I wanted to look at a couple things specifically. One, are there just darn arbitrarily large spells that are good to put on the top? Something like Shadow of Mortality. This is a really brutal creature. It's a 15 mana 7/7 that costs X less to cast, where X is the difference between your starting life total and your life total now. So potentially can come down for cheap later. But the point is, you're just nuking your opponents for 15. Now, the split spells are going to look odd to the uninformed because you look at these and you go, they're not terribly great spells. Some of them are fine, some of them are all right. But what's the deal here? Well, you have to remember that a split spell like this, anywhere except on the stack, um, this is going to be considered the combination of the two mana values. So Connive and Conduct is 9 mana, Discovery Dispersal is 7 mana, and so you can start to see where the value from these comes. They're relatively cheap cards mana wise or cost wise. Some of them have some relevant effects, some of them don't, but the point is some of them still surveil, some of them still hurt our opponents, but they're up high up on this mana cost scale. The other thing is just huge spells, things like Seagate Restoration, Temporal Mastery, Temporal Trespass. Some of these are extra turn spells, which are only going to get better as we hit more ninjas attacking more people. But think about this. Restoration and Temporal are 7. Temporal Trespass is 11. You can start to see where just one or two of these is going to make a huge difference in a game because it happens to each opponent. Treasure Cruise is 8. Commit to Memory is 10. Consign to Oblivion is 7. You can start to see where these split cards really make a huge difference, especially when they're somewhat relevant in their abilities. But the point is still just how brutal they can be to our opponents. Dig Through Time is 8. Next Fate is 7. Cauldron of Eternity, a card that really isn't super great, but it's mainly just there to be 12 mana we can potentially hit with our opponents. Just these big spells that, again, if we can get them on top and reveal them, can really change a game, especially if we could see multiple in a game. So I think the final question we have to ask ourselves is, well, that's great, Millsy, but how do we guarantee they're on the top of our deck? The answer is we can never guarantee they're on the top of our deck, but we can certainly try to know what's on the top of our deck and manipulate it. Things like Bolus Citadel just let you look at the top card of your library at any time. We can play lands and cast spells from the top of our library by paying life instead of their mana value, equal to their mana value instead of mana. Bolus Citadel, I think, is really interesting because it's just going to let you look at the top card, always know what it is, and then maybe you can cast some spells to dig for the right thing. Sensei's Divining Top is very popular in a lot of decks, especially in Yuriko, because for 1 mana, you can look at the top 3 cards and put them back in any order. This should ideally let you know what's on the top, what's sitting there, and what can be used. The thought here is you know how many triggers you're going to hit that turn. Look at the top 3, put the right thing on top. Now, since the Divining Top can also tap to draw a card and then put itself back on top of your library so that you can, draw it again, use it again, whatever. Now, Scroll Rack, on the other hand, is another card that's going to manipulate the top of our deck, but in a different way. So you can pay 1, tap it, exile any number of cards from your hand face down, put that many cards on the top of your library into your hand, then look at the exiled cards and put it back on top of your library in any order. This is ideal because you can rinse and recycle the cards you're getting off the top with Yuriko and putting them back on top to use again. Also, let's say we start with one of these arbitrarily large spells in our hand, we'll Scroll Rack and put it back on top. So I think Scroll Rack's obviously the better card than Divining Top to me, because I think if once you start activating Yuriko a couple times, you can be recycling the things back on top. Both of them could be very useful to just start digging and knowing what's on top, so that you can make better decisions and start digging deeper. But truthfully, either way, we want to start digging, but these can help us understand what's there when we choose to start doing it. But I've said it before on the show, and I'll say it again. No deck's ever complete. This is my honest first shot at Yuriko, and I think going into testing, there's a couple of ways we can look at what we want to do next. We can continue to go down this extra turn route if we want to. A lot of the extra turn spells are at minimum 5 mana. Some of them are pretty expensive, like Expropriate. Expropriate's a great game changer and can help you in the game for sure. But we can look at more things like that. There are other mega expensive extra turn spells. What Beacon of what is it? Beacon of Immortality. The blue one from I think what is it? Like Zendikar or Kamigawa is like 8 or 10 mana. Part the Water Veil's like 9 mana. You can start to see that some of these just arbitrarily large costed extra turn spells are perfect for this deck because they're going to hit hard and then give you a turn to hit hard again. But if we want to keep ourselves in bracket 3, we can only have so many extra turn spells before we're going to honestly move ourselves into bracket 4. Remember, the goal of this deck was to hit bracket 3, which I think it did, mainly because I'm not playing a ton of game changers, which could also make the deck even better. There's other ninjas. I didn't end up putting a Orochi Soul Reaver in here, even though I really like the card. Makes a treasure and manifests the top card of somebody's library. I just thought there were better ninjas, but there are other ninjas out there if you want to take a look at them, including one or two that didn't make it because of budget. Lindum's Vault, I think, is really interesting. So you look at the top 5 of your library as many times as you choose. You can pay a life and put those cards on the bottom in any order, and then look at the top 5 cards of your library. Then shuffle and put the last card you looked at this way on top in any order. So what is kind of interesting about Limdul's Vault, in my opinion, is it's kind of like Sensei's, where you're trying to kind of manipulate what's on top. I just think Sensei's in the scroll rack and the Bolus Citadel do a little bit better job, but I think Lindum's Vault adds another cheapish way to do that if you want to. I think the name of the game eventually for Yuriko is finding out what's on top and punishing your opponents for it. And so I think anything that does that is net beneficial for us, depending on what your approach is going to be. But let's do what we love to do on the channel the most and get into our playtest. Remember, the goal of playtest on our channel is not to find magical Christmas land. It's not to show off all our best plays, but it's just to get in some gameplay scenarios and kind of understand what we're looking for, how we're going to set up, our game plan. Here we're to keep in a 3-lander with Arcane Signet, Dead Smoke Shroud. Here's Mistblade Shinobi, and unfortunately we do get a Mistcloaked Herald. We just have no blue source to play it right away. Remember that Tainted Owl doesn't tap for a blue unless we have a swamp. So unfortunately we have no way to play the Herald on turn 1, which would be ideal. But I think we still got a great unblockable creature for Yuriko. We've got another great ninja to follow things up with. I think we've got a lot of really great pieces. It's just going to be about finding that. And we topped the turn 1 island, which I think is literally ideal. I can't think of a better way to start this than that. Going for the swamp, and then you just attack and just get Yuriko in. There's kind of no reason not to do this on turn 2. There is the risk that we flub. Let's see what it is. It's a counterspell. We make everybody lose 2. And then when we go to pitch, we pitch the Shroud. I guess it can always come back, right? So I guess we pitch the Shroud. It can make itself back. So as we come to turn 3, right? So Yuriko's on the battlefield. We'd love it. That was my thought for keeping the Shroud, was it would be a way to give her unblockable, effectively giving her flying. So maybe it makes sense to pitch something else instead. Dig Through Time, I guess we could pitch, but we could also find a way to put it back on top with the scroll rack, but maybe that makes the most sense. Do the Estuary, replay the Herald, replay the Smoke Shroud. Hit with Yuriko. We've show the Shinobi for 5, so we hit everybody for 5. And now I think we're really going to start getting our engine going. Arcane Adaptation turns all of our creatures into ninjas, which is pretty great. Then these heralds and these unblockable creatures can just hit for free without having the ninjutsu on them. But I guess it comes down to, would we rather try to get Shinobi in this turn, which can potentially get something for free, or would we rather go like Arcane Signet into the adaptation, make this a ninja, and just get 2 triggers this turn, right? I mean, it comes down to what your preference is here. I kind of like the idea of just doing the adaptation line. Nothing there off the 1, and there's the Shadow for 15 on the other one. So now we're in great shape. We've done a lot of really big damage on our opponents, and as we come into this next turn, 6 mana, there's the Ink Eyes if we want to do that. The Shinobi's still there. The mortality probably is still coming down for a really, really large amount. But again, I think you go for a ninjutsu on the attack, pull the herald back, you know, 1 and 2, right? 5 mana there, that, and then get the herald and the ornithopter down to then hit the next turn. And I think we're just in great shape. We've seen what 20 so far of just the mortality and the throat slitter, and now we're going to continue to step our foot on our opponent's necks here, getting these in. The only downside to the Thopter is we're going to have to ninjutsu on it because it won't actually deal combat damage since it has 0 power. So it's probably something for the Slitter or the Ink Eyes to come in on at this point. But otherwise, the Herald's just going to be hitting free. The Shinobi, we could move the Smoke Shroud onto if we were really worried about not hitting for damage. But otherwise, I don't mind. I mean, it's a 5/4. It's still got a good body, and maybe it can get through on the right person's board. But I think we've shown it pretty good there. Let's get into playtest number 2 here. Keep it a 3-lander with Tormented Soul. There's one of our unblockers. Demir Signet for some ramp. Regalia, which can give a legendary creature unblockable for just 1 mana. Again, great for Yuriko, and then Roaming Throne to double up Yuriko's trigger. It's a really great hand. The nice thing here is that you get the Tormented Soul down turn 1, and this is one of the key things you want to look for if you can find it. And then my thought here is just a ninjutsu Yuriko in. Look at the top card. It's Temporal Trespass. There's one of the top end cards we could see. 11 mana value, right? So hitting our opponents for 11. I could pitch the Trespass if I want to at this point. Because I'm trying to figure out what else I would pitch if it's not the Trespass. I guess it could be the Mastery. It's 7 mana versus 11. But we do that. Coming to the next turn, I really want to get this Demir Signet down just to start ramping. But I could get the Regalia onto Yuriko to make her unblockable, right? Or I could go Demir Signet plus Tormented Soul to trigger, do that. But I think it makes the most sense just to go here, get the ramp, get the Regalia done. We can't equip it this turn, but that's okay. I think I still like the idea of setting up so that this turn we can go Roaming Throne plus the Regalia. So now Yuriko is going to trigger twice. 1 from the Ponder, 5 from the Slitter, so we're doing pretty good there. Now Yuriko, Roaming Throne really presents the problem of Yuriko now becoming a threat to our opponents every turn, getting worse and worse, right? Because we're double triggering. Come back to the next turn. Now we're starting to see some draws we really want to be on top. So this would really where we'd love to see. We'd love to see some ways to guarantee some hits. We see Ponder. Let's just look at the top 3 and put it back in any order, shuffle, and then draw. This could ideally get us something there. Kaito can make us ninjas that can't be blocked, allowing Yuriko to trigger more. I kind of want to just run the Ponder and see what we see. I don't really particularly like any of those 3 cards, so I think I'm willing to just shuffle and draw. Hopefully we don't absolutely get bodied by what we see. But I'm thinking just like Kaito plus one of our unblockers here. My thought is -2 the Kaito just to get that ninja token out here, just to give us that extra attacker next turn, and then just have Yuriko attack. First one is Tetsuo for 2, and then Swamp for 0. We're not in terrible shape, and this just means that we're going to get extra hits next turn when this ninja is going to hit in. So that's potentially 4 Yuriko triggers, and we're just in great shape. So as we come to this turn, we're looking at 6 mana. That Trespass is 7, but this is where that extra turn spell could potentially come into handy. Tetsuko could make both of these unblockable, even though they already are. The question is, what can we do to make this board a little bit better? Well, the Throat Slitter could get ninjutsu'd in. Other than that, I think we can just, we could put Smoke Shroud on, like Roaming Throne to give it flying, just to make it have a better chance of getting in, potentially getting 6 triggers this turn. That would leave us enough mana to ninjutsu in Throat Slitter from the Tormented Soul, potentially being 8 triggers here of Yuriko. And I think that's the end game we want to see. The nice part is the Regalia gives her War 2. She's going to be harder to target. If somebody does get her off the battlefield, right? Still 2 mana to come back in. And I think in 8 triggers here, there should be a world where we present just a ton of damage to our opponents. We're looking at 7, 11, 12, 20 damage off the 8 triggers. Yeah, we nuke a bunch of cards in our hand that we're going to have to get rid of. But again, 20 damage plus the damage we've already dealt over the course of the game is just exactly what we want. Pitch the cards we don't need, play one of our lands, and just now we're at the mana to take the extra turns and again just dig through our deck. I think this is the top end of Yuriko. As many triggers as you can per turn is what you definitely want to see, what your opponents don't want to see. But we'll go one more time here. Keeping a 3-lander with the Regalia, there's Miss Blade Shinobi, Silent Blade Oni, and then Tetsuko. Remember, Tetsuko gives itself unblockable, so it's not a bad position to get ourselves in to start getting our things in. So my thought is Tetsuko here. Then put the mana in. Shinobi 6 mana. My thought here is unblockable. Get Yuriko in, right? Look at the top card. It's Nashi for 3. And then I think we're just going to be out a card, unfortunately, because of the mana left over. I'm trying to think of what makes the most sense. Ink Eyes is 5. Oni and Shinobi are pretty good. Shinobi kind of works with Tetsuko because it's unblockable. So I'm thinking Ink Eyes. I mean, the next turn we can give her unblockable there and get the Shore Stalker down. Attack. And there's Time Mastery for 7. Unfortunately, we don't have the... we were way outside of the miracle cost here, right? But 7's still pretty darn good for the damage. Then as we come into our next turn, 5 mana Nashi's 4 to Ninjutsu and is pretty good. Silent Blade is 6 to Ninjutsu, so we're almost there. Same thing with the Bolas of Citadel. So I think I'd kind of rather just leave up the mana to Ninjutsu, attack Ninjutsu in. I thought is maybe Nashi could give us a nice spell to cast by paying the life. So we're gonna get 4 mana total there, or 2 total there between the 2 triggers, and then we'd be able to leave up the offer if we want, or replay one of our unblockables. I think your guess is as good as mine as which makes the most sense. I feel like I'd probably leave up the offer just to protect myself, just in case somebody tries to play, something against me. I almost feel like Tetsuko's probably just useless at this point. A lot of these cheap creatures are just going to get in no matter what. I guess there's the Shinobi that's making me want to hang on to it. I don't know. I guess I'll just pitch one of the unblockers. And then as we come back to our next turn, there's the 6th mana. We could go for the Citadel. We can't. We don't have triple black. But we do have enough for the Silent Blade Oni now. My thought is what? Tetsuko, Tormented Soul. We could just hard cast the Shinobi. Attack with Yuriko, get the trigger. And then now we're really set up for next turn. These 2 are going to be completely unblockable. Drawing the treasure troops there is brutal. It would have been nice on the top. We could just mastery and have another turn. So here we're getting automatically 2 triggers from those 2. Or we could do the attack here and pick up the Tormented Soul for Silent Blade Oni. And then we're getting 2 guaranteed hits, probably right in the 3rd with Oni. So 1, 2, 3. That's just 3 damage off Yuriko. But then Oni gets us the free spells. And I think we're still off to the races. But I'd love to know, what do you think of Yuriko down in the comment section below. Again, Yuriko is a classic commander. A lot of people have love for Yuriko. She's a fun deck to deal with because you kind of have to try to figure out with this game plan what you're going to do. I think this version feels good at bracket 3. Getting up into bracket 4 if you want to chase the game changers. You got bigger and better spells you can pick. But I'd love to know what you think of Yuriko down in the comment section below, and I will catch you on the next